the 9-pillar framework. I'm Jason for AwakenedEssence.com. I'm going to do a summary of the 9-pillar framework. They each have their own page. So the 9-pillar framework is more of an extensive breakdown of the 4-ingredient summary of what do you want, what you're doing about it, your structures to awaken, the structure of the awakening process, the awakening journey, the structure of us as a physical human being, and how that is required for the structure of you as a human needs to be included so you can awaken in a genuine fashion. Because what do you want, what you're going to do about it? You need to understand your structures, how to do correct presence practice, unless you have another way. If you do, let me know. So you can apply the structures, so you can validate the evidence with your volitional attention, your conscious mind being your light to align your structures, align your neurology, align your psychology, blah, blah, blah. So you have the evidence in life when things happen, good things, bad things, ordinary things, tedious things, lockdown things, chronic health things, everything. And within your structure of your correct presence practice, as you use your volitional intention, you can get a sense of how good it was. So right now, we don't have feathered buddies today, the masters of chaos. No, we have the gurus of serenity, the mellow roos. Fantastic bandwidth with these animals. So the 9-pillar framework is the 9 main things, apart from what do you want, what you're doing about it, that helps break down the structure of the awakening process. Ingredient 2. And any activity in your life. I mean, as we go through them, they're pretty common sense, and common sense is a rare thing. But when you use them, you get the results. So I'll do a brief introduction to the 9-pillar summary. It fell out of having made the Laws of Grace, which was over a year of recording during the outbreak of the pandemic and living in Locktoria, where we had very extensive lockdowns. So this was in my rules to come here during my exercise time and hang out with the Masters of Chaos, my feathered buddies, and these super serene beings, the grey kangaroos. They're just divine. So, pillar 1, and if you get this one sus, then everything else just falls into place, and then you will have the evidence. So, the first pillar is correct presence practice. So that's where you're using your volitional attention and doing the 4 steps to correct presence practice. The first 3, Eckhart Tolle made world famous pretty easily. Step 1, body. Step 2, his concept of inner body, i.e. anything that's not physically touchable. Step 3, the consciousness container that you are, that is encompassing and allowing everything to be as it is, which is now the legendary most vague statement inside this website, because you do allow what is. The presence holds it so it can be there. If you're in pain, you're in pain. Physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain, whatever pain, right? Your emotions, if they're happening, then they're happening. If your head's doing a train track diatribe, well, feel your bum, do your correct presence practice, because that is a principle of your consciousness. If you are contracting your pelvic floor, being aware of your body, your physicality, your feet, your hands, your shoulder blades, your sternum, and your tummy breathing, if you're actually focused there with your volitional attention, you can't be stuck in the train track until, you know, the habit machine, unconscious mind, and we'll get to that in pillar 5, and you drag your, you know, gravity sucks you back up. But if you stay focused, it's impossible to be stuck in your head. This is why it's mathematical, and this 9-pillar framework is pretty much bulletproof, because I've been testing it for 2 years now. I mean, this is how I've been operating for 30 years, just within the structure of this awakening process, this 9-pillar framework. That's how it works. So your correct presence practice gives you the results, gives you the evidence. It is the most important numero uno thing. So correct presence practice goes into that in exquisite detail, and that's merely section 1 of the laws of grace, which covers the maths, the habit formation, the bad habits, the myths that need busting, all that vague stuff. We touch a bit more in the cult stuff, even though there's a cult page here as well, because it's just too important. So there's a huge range of topics. All of the gnarly stuff in life is pretty much covered, because I caught it live with no filters, just this guy reporting my experience with life chucking stuff at me. So I'm going to check my buddies. They're moving around. They do that. I just love watching them, how they can literally be a 5-legged being. They're amazing. Pillar number 2 includes all of you, allowing everything to be as it is. Yes, that includes your ego. Yes, that includes your head. That includes your desire to create space or be lazy and think that when I remember I'm not present, I am, which is the worst statement Eckhart Tolle has ever made, to not check the steps and volitionally validate that you have done it, which trains you to the correct habit of correct presence practice instead of laziness or being in your head thinking theories or whatever. Pillar 3. Well, pillar 3 is the same as ingredient 3. This is how critical it is. Rules of evidence. So we've covered that in the summary video. What's the evidence right now? I got like 15 kangaroos near me, and I might sneak a little bit closer as they get used to me. Alright, so this is measurable outcomes in your life, real time. Sitting on your meditation cushion and doing it then and then forgetting it the rest of the day is evidence you're going to get nowhere extremely fast. Nowhere as in zero movement, zero depth, zero real. So right now I'm doing pillar 1, sinking in. All right. Rules of evidence. I can write this in my journal, or I can come and watch this video as evidence. Hello, someone's moved on. So the first 3, correct presence practice, which is your structure, ingredient 2, including all of you, which is your structure. So you don't have the internal war. Ooh, that's your ego speaking. Well, yes it is, because I'm including all of myself while I practice my pillar 1 correct presence practice, which will soften your ego. Number 3, rules of evidence. The 4th one, okay, take a deep breath, be aware of your tummy. This is where it gets tough. Law 0. And this one in itself is totally mathematical. Self-honesty and self-responsibility. These grow, these vary, and the shortcut one is, am I lying to myself? Which is a negative one, but it just, you know, if you've been in sticky situations and you're really not sure, that's a good one to ask, especially if you're under the influence of manipulative people that use lots of vague language or have lots of energetic city. Spiritual powers, spiritual, you know. These guys have got truckloads of it. I can be in quite a altered state for a few days if I spend an hour watching them. This has happened many times. They are amazing. So, pillar 4, law 0. There's quite a few videos regarding that one on the YouTube channel and here on the website. This one is really critical for students at Student Success Tutor, and also learnwhispering.com. And animals, because they don't have an ego, they don't have that conscious volitional capacity like we do. Yeah, they've got basic ones, rudimentary ones, but nothing like us. They live law zero. So everything the masters of chaos, the parrots, do, or these gurus of serenity do, it's purely instinctual, and it comes from that self-honest place of fight flight, pretty much. Fight flight, breed. In terms of the kangaroos having a scratch, they're scratch masters, they really are. Eat, breed, sleep, be safe. And some animals obviously do things just for pure enjoyment. So they live the law zero. Humans don't, and our minds give us the capacity to think things that aren't real. And I love Adyashanti's definition of a belief. A belief is a container for uncertainty. Question that one for a few weeks. It's profoundly true. When it's evidence, it's wisdom, You don't need to debate it, because you could write it down. I know the sun's going to rise tomorrow. I don't need to believe that. So a lot of spiritual stuff, especially the vague stuff that's not tied down to super specifics, is often a tooth fairy thing, or a truism. Yes, there is no two. However, what's the evidence? This is the differentiation. This is why non-duality in terms of the no-doer is completely wrong, and it's delusionary. It's not real. Yes, there is no two. And pillar one, correct presence practice, is how you have that, So these guys are getting used to me, because I haven't hung out with them for a while. Again, habit. Which takes us on to pillar 5, your unconscious mind. Literally. So conscious mind, I want a banana, not an apple, and yes, you're allowed to judge, including all of you. It's very good to make judgments so you don't do the wrong thing. So you got your conscious mind and your unconscious mind. Yeah, you can split it up into other levels of depth of your capacity to access it or not, which may relate to the brain, neocortex, more conscious. Then you got the center of your brain, which is quite unconscious, brainstem, the reptilian, heart brain, 40,000 brain cells from the womb when you were first being created. They carry some really good stuff, right? But it's your gateway, that's the heart. So, and then there's the solar plexus. There's as much neural matter down here where you process your food. Yes, you have bleep for brains, but it's your emotional center, solar logos, the sun, solar plexus, our center of our self with the small s. As it starts to rain. Alright, so your unconscious mind is your habit machine. And when you were a baby in the womb and through to when you did start to form your identity, your ego, your character, character might have come in with you, but this lifetime's personality and your ego and all that sort of stuff, that forms. Because a baby doesn't have it. They don't even know where to put the food, This is why you have an ego. So this is the domain of the unconscious, the gateway to the heart, down and up to there. Also, how it accesses your DNA and your light fibers and all those sorts of things, spiritual stuff that comes off it. So your habit machine is your default reaction, your default way of living, and that's why correct presence practice, pillar 1, when you do that enough and you do it correctly, correct habit, teach the correct habit. Well, you had it in the womb and when you were still a baby, It was unconscious, it wasn't a proper habit, but that's your default setting. Return to innocence. 5-year-old. And your unconscious mind is a 5-year-old. That's how it works, that's how it thinks, that's why it takes everything personally. Go to the Pillar 5 page. The prime directives are down the bottom. It's fairly dry, boring reading, but the implications of it are massive. Totally massive. Yeah, it takes everything personally. Yep, does not process a negative. So whatever you do right now, don't think of a pink elephant that's got blue painted toenails, because blue painted toenails on a pink elephant is not good. Your mind cannot process that without seeing a pink elephant. Prime directive, rules of structure. So as you train your unconscious, oh yeah, they're there. They're mellowing out. There was a dog chasing them before, Dog owners really just have no idea. So these guys come out of being in fight flight pretty quick. Do you? When you've had an argument, do you stew on it for hours afterwards? These guys don't, nor do the parrots. Watch them. They don't carry much baggage unless it's, severe fight-flight stuff. Unconscious mind, prime directive number 1 of the unconscious mind is to keep you safe, fight-flight. That's why so much trauma goes in so early when you're a baby, because it's realising, ooh, takes it all personally, and it installs stuff that actually affects the brain development and logs in there pretty damn hard. I could talk about this for hours, and this is supposed to be a summary. So, your habit machine, train your habit machine right. What do you want? What you're doing about it? Pillar 1, correct presence practice. Pillar 5, unconscious mind. Then you'll learn the correct habit, install it as the default, and that will start evidencing, especially when you start moving into phase 2 non-abidance. And that's a really good place to live from if you're not super serious, or you just want to get your spiritual search to a place where you can be a lot more happy. Yeah, stuff will still knock you about, but you'll have cycles where it's really easy and you're developing the habit. Not many people are there yet, unfortunately, but it's a quick journey to that one. Abidance, abiding presence, a priori, unconscious reset, neurology reset, so you don't freak out and become dysfunctional when you connect up to the Almighty. Takes a bit longer. This is all in the laws of grace, so you can monitor yourself to get there with precision and accuracy. As we hear the helicopter. Being aware of the noises in your environment. Pillar 6, well, support. So that comes in the form of people that will support your cause, your what do you want, what you're doing about it. Teachers, courses, coaching. Got a mastery club here for serious people. Support and feedback. When you can get external support and with people that speak the same language and are doing this stuff properly, it's hard to find. It really helps, because unconsciously too what we do is we norm to our society, and this is where I discovered Edushanti like 3 or 4 months after I permanently hit the abiding phase. So his voice was like, this is my experience in my head, but nobody else has a clue. Even when I was in spiritual groups, it was just blatant. So thanks, Edja, you played a big role of support for me, even though it was just on MP3s every day. And that helped me hit the matured phase 4 really, really quick before I met you and you confirmed it. So support. These videos, this YouTube channel is support. Coaching is support. Mastery club support. Maybe you have people around you that also practice presence correctly, although most people don't, otherwise they would awaken, because it's It's maths, it's straight maths. Hey darlings. And now they're totally ignoring me, so that's awesome. One's bouncing through. So support, yeah, support's available here, and you get at least one session of coaching with every course, so you can get the feedback and I can check in with your bandwidth, which leads us on to number 7, structure, and there's always more. So this is kind of a 2-part one, a bit like number 4, law 0, self-honesty, self-responsibility. There is always more. There is always more crap. If you're serious and you look, because you've got DNA. You've got your entire lineages from both sides stored in your body, ready to go blah at you. And that's why some of the divine avatars that have incarnated on this planet, they make actually specific mention, especially regards like Sri Shakti-Amandarayani, her incarnating here on this planet. They had to wait for the right DNA. It's the same with Jesus Christ too, actually. If you read the book, Anna, the grandmother of Jesus. So that's profound stuff. And my buddies are eating again, so they're comfortable. So structure doesn't change. Ingredient 2. And if that doesn't seem 100% real to you from your experience, and you have to take it on as a belief, oh, I believe that structure overrules content, then do that until you get the evidence. Right, this is why this 4 ingredient thing works. I don't know if I could simplify it anymore. But you will learn to trust the structure to the point where as you go in through the cycles, through the phases, so as you go through the phases of awakening, there comes that point where you will be faced with, just got to love the timing. You find yourself in an emergency situation or a tough situation, you will trust the structure. Correct presence practice. Hands, bum, feet, It's really good when you're being bullied. Be aware of your hands. It slows down the fight-flight response, because your unconscious mind wants to keep you safe, but your unconscious mind will learn to totally trust this process. This is why phase 3, abiding presence, enlightenment level 1, is the flip of your unconscious neurology and psychology to being open to the divine, so you can access that with your volitional attention. So structure doesn't change, and there's always more. There's more phases of awakening, more than I can talk about. I've just taken Aj's ones, well, Nisargadatta before him, I assume, to the next cycle that I've been evidencing since 2015, the transpersonal, which is really, really challenging. You really, really need a solid ego. Carl Jung is correct. Hello, Mellow Mama. Ooh, movement. Watch the kangaroos. They will tell you where the trouble is. They're like radar devices. Which takes us to number 8. Blind spots. This is where your radar doesn't work, because it's something you're in denial of. That big long river in Egypt. And that may be because it's ingrained from an early age. Maybe it's just something you're very uncomfortable with and you don't want to face it. But blind spots are real crackers, and that's why I've had my coach for 20, heading towards 22 years. Because she just slaps me with them every time. And that's the thing with blind spots. They are so brutal. If you look at the advanced inquiry pages there, that there is that part where when you first hear about a blind spot, you will deny it. You'll be too irrational, and you'll hear that part of you, and your head go, well, I do it because, just checking my radar devices. You'll go through that process every time. For blind spots, you got to process it and cognize it. Like your mind won't You literally fuse, as in short circuit. My current blind spot is a biggie that I'm working with that my coach gave me 9 days ago, and my brain's still fusing on it, but I'm watching it happen. I'm watching it, and it needs to sink in. So that's part of the inquiry process. So blind spots are rippers, and they do hold you back. Yeah, that's for the super keen person, but this website is for the super keen person, because what do you want? What are you going to do about it? 5 years or less to phase 3 abiding awakening if you so want. Non-abiding, which is a pretty sweet place to live, and that's the start, or taking you through the individuation process, getting some emotional intelligence going on there, handling tough life stuff fairly swiftly, you recover quickly, then you have your bliss cycles for weeks or months at a time, and then your hell cycles, where it's a real grind. Correct presence practice is a real grind, and phase 1 got it lost today. Phase 2, it gets a lot easier. Second half of phase 2, yeah, it's pretty sweet, and then it will be so awesome because you're practicing consciously all day, from the second you wake up to the minute you go, you'll go, this is really awesome. You might not even notice you're flicked into abidance until, without claiming's bad. This is why pillar 7, the second half of it is, there is always more, There is always more. I didn't claim it to myself until 4 years in, because I'd lost so many awakenings, especially in my 15 years of spiritual hoo-ha before I discovered presence practice. So I didn't relent. So I hit matured abidance, phase 4, the completion of the first cycle, within 4 years. Tested by corporate bullies, major health stuff, super chronic pain, you name it, it was there. The evidence just totally stacked. Before I admitted it to myself, and then another year before I admitted it to anybody outside of me, and then year 6, Adja confirmed it. I didn't need him to confirm it, but he did. Now, blind spots. Brutal, brutal, brutal. Most people just... Law zero thins out most people. The few that are left, blind spots. Oh, tough, tough, tough. We will cover your blind spots in coaching. They tend to be fairly blatant to me, because I do tune into you because of the transpersonal thing, just like Adja does. He exhibits evidence. Transpersonal, he does, but he never talks about it. Now, blind spots. These the nicer way of looking at blind spots, because it's actually quite a horrible label, is it's your personality lessons and your soul lessons to wisdom. Because what I've noticed since I created the 9 pillar framework is, when you move through a blind spot, it's like, oh my God, that is so true. With hindsight, it's blatant. Why don't you come over here, darling? Eh? There's quite a close Roo just off the side here, so you won't see it, but it's yum. Yeah, hindsight. Blind spots. Once you get through them, you know, because those habits will mostly vanish. You will be tested. We're always tested. That's how you know you've done it. And then if it comes up again, you'll notice a reduction in your reactions, and how long it takes to work through it will be reduced each time. That's progress. Evidence is incremental. The phases of awakening, you can't have one experience and say you're there. That's nonsense, because then it's gone. I rate it in terms of how many years have you been there. Although I skipped phase 5 because I went and hung out with Sri Shaktiamma Narayani, the embodiment of the Divine Mum, and I got totally cooked. That's a technical term. Blazed out in the golden bliss of God was probably another technical term, but it worked because I was spiritually fit. And I coped with it because I was okay, because I was phase 4 matured abidance. I could cope with the fact that there was no longer a Jason guy, even though I was still behaving normally, my character self over there in India. So that leads to, well, with hindsight, it's like common sense. Pillar 9 is common sense. So this is demonstrated by this framework. This here, the 4 ingredients, this 9-pillar framework. Pillar 1, correct presence practice. These are all applicable in any area of your life. Roger Federer uses it for tennis. Tiger Woods for golf. Whoever tend to use these structures when they're a master of their field of endeavour. So this process here, while it's spiritual and related to presence and, you know, hanging out with the divine, or at least presence, which is pretty damn yummy anyway, it's common sense that if you apply it to learning a subject, that is the learning state. If you're applying it to hanging out with kangaroos, like I am right now, there's one just there, it applies to whispering. It is the high performance state. So now look at your spiritual practices or other practices you've done and see if it applies to other areas. What about mantra meditation? I mean, it will help with increasing your focus, but it's not something you can apply to playing tennis with, eh? No. Study? No. Because you only say one mantra, don't you? The one that your guru gives you. So that's where some of these spiritual methodologies are extremely slow, and that's why they can't say, in 5 years you'll be in phase 3 abiding. You can with this. You can become a good tennis player in 5 years if you want. You can get your black belt in 5 years if you want, for karate, judo or whatever, in 5 years if you want. You can become a carpenter in 5 years. And if you miss one of these 4 structures here, the 4 ingredients or anything in the 9-pillar framework, you probably won't be as good a carpenter. Common sense. And that way you can relate to the world. You can be hanging out with God in the corporate world when your GM is a serial bully. So that's the 9-pillar framework. There'll be the crazy original cockatoo version below. See if you can keep your focus in amongst the feathered mayhem. Hello, darling. How you doing? A lot of the 9-pillar videos in the website are not public in the YouTube channel, so please watch them in the website. So pillar 9. Hey sweetie. Pillar 9 is common sense. Once you process your blind spots, it's common sense. And these structures here, the correct presence practice, can be applied in any field. You've already heard me say it numerous times. Study skills, the learning state. Yeah, alpha brainwave, theta brainwave states. Because you're grounded in your body, you're attentive. You're training your volitional attention. And you're working with your unconscious mind. So it stores all that memory properly. What are you doing, honey? It's a girl. Oh, they're divine. How you doing, sweet? Hey? Yeah. Bandwidth. So, one of the other aspects of the rules of evidence in Pillar 3 is bandwidth. Yep. And, you can feel it when you get around certain teachers. You can feel that bandwidth energy, and it's just like, they call it transmission in some spiritual circles. And if you can hold that vibration, and soak in it, keep your correct presence practice up, you will soak it up. And then the test, the evidence is for you is when you leave the workshop, the retreat, the satsang or the coaching session, is how long can you hold on to it? Notice the slide off. Write it as evidence in your journal. That's what I did when I was hanging out with that teacher that I had for 4 years, and every other teacher really. But I also get it with these guys. Oh, I'm starting to bliss out. So, hey honey, like in terms of the transpersonal thing, she knows I'm feeling her. Hey honey. And there's the five-legged sort of walkie thing. But bandwidth, yeah. That to me, when I tune into you during a coaching session, and sometimes I can just, well, I can sense your public version, but when I tune in properly, I have your permission. Otherwise, I don't snoop. Respect for boundaries, eh? I'm big on boundaries. Which is why the cult page is there. Your bandwidth won't go like this. Your bandwidth tends to be fairly, and then, you know, on a good cycle or when you have, you know, peak experiences, it may pop up and your bandwidth may sort of grow a bit. But as you deepen in the phases, it goes both ways. That's why you can handle life crap, serious life crap, and be connected to the divine at the same time. You may have repressed traumas coming up from your heart brain or your gut or your brain stem. You know, your limbic system will come up to be reviewed. That's a prime directive of the unconscious mind, Pillar 5. So you will be able to hold your presence as that stuff's running. I had a really nasty bout of it in 2019 for about 5 months. It was womb stuff. And God, it was terrible, absolutely horrible, while I was feeling joy and the connection. So bandwidth is, there's videos on that as well, down below, and in the Correct Presence Practice course, the Laws of Grace. It's quite important because that's a really useful way for me to assist you to move faster and be honest about where you're at, because otherwise you're blind spotting. You can move through this fast. That's what I keep saying. It's just a matter of what do you want and what are you going to do about it. And the doing is your volitional attention into your structures, and the evidence will stack. That's Pillar 9, common sense, eh? And that proves to God that you're ready for step 4, the divine. And God will give it to you. God's very keen to dish out the blessings and all the juice, as is this being here, because she lends us all her atoms, eh? What are you doing, honey? Sidestepping? That's the 9-pillar framework. Book a coaching session, or if you want a quick chat, give me a ring. Phone number's at the bottom of the page. Leave a nice clear message if I don't answer, eh? Thank you. So I'm Jason for AwakenedEssence.com. You're beautiful, aren't you, honey? I wonder if I caught the little Joey. Not quite.